Hey, good afternoon. This is Danny with the Christian Metal Ministry, and I'm glad to have you with us here today. And hey, we're starting a new series called 24 Hours to Hope and Healing. We want to start the series off with marriages 24 hours to hope and healing. A different approach to this to help you in your marriage, to help with self discovery. And this is part of the Christian Metal Ministry, the things that we have been doing with articles, devotions, the Metal Translation Bible, sermons, songs, things like that. So this is another part of our metal ministry to help marriages and other different things along the way in this series. Our hope is that it will become an encouragement to you. You see, most people watch Gordon Ramsay, some of his shows, Hell's Kitchen, 24 Hours to Hell and Back, and they think that they're watching a show about restaurants, but basically they're not. What they're doing, they're watching a show about people. Every episode starts in the same way. A restaurant is failing, customers are leaving, money's disappearing, employees are frustrated, and the owners are angry. The food not really up to par anymore. The passion's not there. But at first, it looks like the food is a problem because most of the time it is. The food is not up to par anymore. It used to be great, but then they started cutting corners, started going out buying things in bulk and freezing it, and they got a cooler walk-ins or freezers just stacked full of food that they're not selling anymore because they don't have a lot of customers like they used to. So a lot of that is going to waste. But then Gordon starts asking questions. Suddenly, the real issues begin to surface. A husband and wife hasn't communicated in years, or maybe a father and son are carrying old wounds. A family is buried under resentment, or a family is buried under debt. Trust has been broken. Forgiveness has never happened. The restaurant wasn't the problem. The restaurant was the symptom. You see, the real problem was hidden beneath the surface. But as I continue to watch each episode, I realize something. Many marriages are exactly the same way. Marriages is where most people feel the pain first. People often come seeking answers for the symptoms. We keep arguing. We keep fighting. We don't get along anymore. We never talk. We lost that spark. We feel distant. Or we don't connect like we used to. Now, don't get me wrong, these are real problems and real issues, but they are often symptoms of something even deeper. The argument is not the problem. The silence is not the problem. The distance is not the problem. But it's something underneath all those things that is causing these things to happen. But until we discover the root issue, the symptoms will just continue to return. You see, Gordon Ramsay often asks a question in different ways throughout his show. How did we get here? Or how did we get to this point? He doesn't say, well, whose fault is it? Who's right? Who's wrong? But how did we get to this point? You see, that question right there changes everything. It invites honesty instead of the blame game, reflection instead of accusations, healing instead of whining. You see, when people think of the Bible, they often think of commands, doctrines, teachings, lessons. Those are certainly there in the Bible. But when you slow down and read carefully, God and Jesus ask an incredible number of questions. Not because God lacks information, but because questions reveal the heart. Where are you, Adam and Eve? Where is your brother, Cain? Whom shall I send? Isaiah. What do you want me to do for you? Blind Bartimaeus. Do you want to be healed? The man at Bethesda. Who do you say that I am? The disciples. Do you love me? Peter. You see, in every case, God already knew the answer. The question wasn't for God's benefit. The question was for theirs. The question forced them to stop, think, reflect, and confront reality. That's what makes questions so powerful. A statement tells people what to think. A question invites people to discover the truth themselves. That's often where real transformation begins. Now look at the way Nathan confronts David after David's sin with Bathsheba. You see, Nathan didn't walk in and say, David, you're an adulterer and a murderer. Shame on you. Repent. No. But instead, Nathan tells David a story about a neighbor who had this lamb, and this rich man wanted it and went over and stole it and cooked it for his friends. But then Nathan asked questions. Then David reached the conclusion himself. Only after David's heart was exposed did Nathan say, you are the man. That's masterful spiritual investigation. Jesus often did the same thing. People came to him with questions, and many times Jesus responded with another question. Why? Because Jesus wasn't merely giving information. He was exposing motives. He was uncovering assumptions. He was helping people see what was really happening inside of them. Many Christian articles tell people, pray more, communicate better, read your Bible. I mean, these are good things, don't get me wrong. But your approach asks, why did you stop praying? Why did communication begin breaking down? These are the approaches that we want to ask. These are the approaches that the questions that I want to ask. What wound are you carrying? What conversations are you avoiding? What are you afraid to admit? How did we get to this point? People aren't just reading advice. They're examining themselves by these questions. A self-examination is deeply biblical. Paul wrote, examine yourself. He didn't tell us to examine everyone else. In many marriages, they fail because each spouse becomes an expert in diagnosing the other person. Only a few become experts at examining themselves. Questions help change that. You see, one of the strongest lines is this. Before we fix the symptoms, let's find the source. That's very much in the spirit of both biblical counseling and the investigative style to examine ourselves. And when people discover the truth about themselves, they often, where Christ begins the most deepest work of healing. Most marriage articles will say, hey, here's 10 ways to improve communication. Do these 10 things and you will communicate better. Well, let's discover why communication broke down in the first place so that we know how to fix it before we find 10 ways to improve our communication. You see the approach? Anybody can tell you 10 ways to improve communication, but are they trying to help you discover why your communication broke down so you don't keep repeating that same thing over and over, or it keeps resurfacing? See, most people already know what they're supposed to do. Communicate, pray, spend time together, forgive. The problem is that they know what they stopped doing all along. But we should ask the questions was, uh, when did it start? What changed everything? Or what wound has not been healed that needs to be healed? What conversation never happened that should be happening? Or what fear am I hiding? Or what role did I play in this? Those questions create self discovery. And people rarely change because they are told what to do. Here's 10 ways to improve your communication. Well, yeah, we can tell you what to do, but until you find out the root problem as to why you stop communicating so you can fix it, people often change when they finally see themselves honestly as who they are and what they're doing. When was the last time that you had a meaningful conversation with your spouse that wasn't about work, bills, schedules, or children? Do you feel heard by your spouse? Are you talking to each other or talking at each other? There is a difference. And what is one thing that you've been trying to communicate that your spouse may not be hearing? Or how about when was the last time that you felt genuine loved by your spouse? What made you fall in love with them in the first place? If you met your spouse today, would you still be attracted to the person you have become? Do you offer more appreciation than criticism? Or what is the biggest hurt that you have been that you haven't really discussed with your spouse? Are you carrying resentment from something that happened years ago? Have you truly forgiven your spouse? Or have you just simply stopped talking about the issue? If I ignore it, it goes away. Or what wounds keep reopening every time we argue or fight? And when was the last time you both been on a date? How much quality time do you spend together each week? And I'm not talking about just sitting on the couch and someone else sits in the chair and watches TV and that's it. I'm talking about quality time together. Have you become business partners instead of a husband and wife? Do you feel like a roommate or just somebody living there and not like a husband and wife? Are you investing more energy into your job and career than you are in your marriage? Or what have you done to contribute to the current condition of your marriage? Or when was the last time you sincerely apologized to your spouse or children? Are you more interested in being right or being reconciled? Or what would your spouse identify as your greatest weakness? Or what are your children learning about marriage by watching you and your spouse? If your children copied your marriage someday, would you be happy for them? Is your home filled with peace or tension? And what atmosphere are you creating every day? And just spiritual questions. Do you pray together? Do you read the Bible together? Are you growing closer to Christ, or do you feel like you're drifting further away from Christ? Is God at the center of your marriage, or is it simply part of a routine? What is the least I can do to get by and still get into heaven? You see, many couples believe their biggest issue is communication. Sometimes communication is the problem, but often it isn't. Communication is frequently the symptom, but the real issues also may be unresolved hurt, pride, selfishness, unforgiveness, disappointment, broken trust, maybe fear, emotional neglect, spiritual adrift. You see, a husband may say something like this: I mean, my wife never listens. But the deeper issue may be, I don't feel respected. Or a wife may say something, my husband works too much. But the deeper issue may be, I just don't feel important anymore to him. A child may act out in anger because the deeper issue may be, I just want someone to notice me. You see, the visible problem is often smoke, but the root issue is the fire. But see, this is where Christian marriages differ from world solutions. The ultimate question is not merely what is wrong with our marriage. The ultimate question is what is happening in our relationship with Christ. Because many marriage problems are spiritual problems wearing relationship clothes. Pride becomes a marriage problem. Selfishness becomes a marriage problem. Unforgiveness becomes a marriage problem. Spiritual drift becomes a marriage problem. You see, when two people move closer to Christ, they often find themselves moving closer to one another. Not because problems magically disappear, but because humility grows, grace grows, patience grows, forgiveness grows. All those things create an environment where healing can happen. Take one evening this week. Turn off the TV, put your phones away, and ask one question. Just one question. How did we get to this point? Then listen. Do not interrupt. Don't defend yourself and become defensive. Don't prepare some rebuttal in your mind, but just listen. You may discover wounds that have been hidden for years. You may also uncover fears that have never been expressed. You may find tears where anger once lit. You may also even discover that what looked like a marriage problem was actually a heart problem all along. You see, the good news is that broken things can be restored. Marriages can heal. Trust can be rebuilt. Communication can also improve. Families can recover. But healing rarely begins with blame. It begins with honesty. It begins with humility. It begins when asking difficult questions. But most importantly, it begins by returning to Christ. The strongest marriages are not perfect marriages. They are marriages where two imperfect people continually choose grace, forgiveness, growth, and faithfulness. So before asking, how do we fix this? Or what are the 10 ways to improve our communication? Start with a better question as, how did we get to this point? Because sometimes the road to healing begins with understanding the road that brought us to the hurt. And that understanding may become the first step toward hope, healing, and restoration.